Hey there, Ryan Reynolds here. It's a new year, and you know what that means. No, not the diet. Resolutions. A way for us all to try and do a little bit better than we did last year. And my resolution, unlike big wireless, is to not be a raging and raise the price of wireless on you every chance I get. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
The weather this winter has been brutally cold and windy, so why not stay indoors with some hearty chili? The 5th annual Chili Cook-Off is happening at Sonny's Pizza on February 23rd. Attendees will get to sample over 10 varieties of chili, all from local Georgia Avenue small businesses. RSVP for free or grab a VIP pass, which includes early entry, guaranteed chili tastings, and other perks. Again, that's the 5th annual Chili Cook-Off at Sonny's Pizza. That's in Columbia Heights on Georgia Avenue between Irving and Kenyon, and it's on February 23rd. Today on CityCast DC, we have more about the deadly air accident. We're going to talk about the latest on Donald Trump's battle against his own workforce. And should DC schools ban cell phones? I'm here with my CityCast colleagues Priyanka Tilve and Julia Karen. Today is Friday, January 31st. I'm Michael Schaefer, and here's what DC's talking about. Hey, Priyanka, how's it going?
It's going okay. This has been a long week.
Hey, Julia.
This week has lasted a year, my guys.
You know, it's weird. We've been talking about all this, like, epochal history, you know, is the Republic doomed kind of stuff. And it felt very retro to all of a sudden have our attention fixated on something like an airplane tragedy, not a big philosophical battle, just a horribly sad thing that happened. And we've learned a ton about it in the last day. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the big news on Thursday morning was that officials think there are no survivors of the crash. So of the 64 people that had been on the passenger plane and then the 3 soldiers that had been aboard the helicopter, the military helicopter, there are at this point no known survivors, which is heavy. I mean, that's a tragic thing.
Just so I understand, like, the assumption is that people died when the planes went into the water?
So it's not clear if they died from like an explosion. I mean, you can see an explosion in the video. The 2 aircrafts crashed into each other, but then also there were freezing temperatures in the water. There was a lot of ice. It seems like they're worried people might have gotten stuck under the ice. In fact, one of the headlines on Thursday was that DC Fire and EMS own this specific fireboat that is meant to help break ice, and it would have been instrumental in this rescue mission, potentially, except that it was out of service. It's been out of service since 2022. Councilmember Charles Allen is furious about this. He's been commenting on how ridiculous it is that this boat wasn't in service and how he's been talking about this for the last 2 years. That could just be like politicking. I don't know. But there's also a chance that it would have been useful in the rescue efforts.
I think the much more energetic question is, you know, how did these 2 aircraft come to crash into each other in this catastrophic way? What have we learned about that?
So, according to the New York Times, staffing at the air traffic control tower that's at DCA wasn't normal. There was apparently one person who was doing 2 people's jobs. So basically, the person who was handling the helicopters in the airport's vicinity that Wednesday night was also instructing planes that were landing and departing from the runways. So that's typically 2 people due to those jobs. That was down to 1 person on Wednesday night.
Yeah, and that New York Times reporting, if I remember right, is based on a preliminary internal report from the Federal Aviation Authority. So this is their own investigation. I mean, I'm sure they're going to be doing a much more robust investigation in coming weeks to try and understand that important question you just brought up, Mike, of how could this possibly have happened? But it seems that this is one thing they're pointing to as a potential answer. So
just so I understand, there's an air traffic control tower there, which gives instructions to planes coming and going. But like if you are, you know, a helicopter going from one military base to another or something like that, do you also need to coordinate with the DCA tower or
Yes.
are you just on your own?
Yes.
Yeah, everything goes through that tower. And in fact, I've been interviewing potential aviation guests for us because we're going to have a full episode about this on Monday. And that was one of my main questions. And yes, I've learned that all information, military, civilian, aircrafts, all information for them goes through the same unified air control tower because they want everyone on the same page.
Because we're a local news podcast, let's go to the question that's always first in local news. What's the effect on traffic? I kid, but there was a ton of disruption. Airport itself closed, a bunch of roads closed. What still remains closed as of the end of yesterday, and what has reopened?
So all day Thursday, basically, the area near Haynes Point and Buzzard Point and Navy Yard was shut down. That was to aid in the recovery efforts by DC Fire and EMS and emergency services. It's unclear how long that will last or has lasted.
Yeah, but it was a mess. It was like on Thursday, there was no point in going anywhere near those areas because the traffic was completely shut down. There was also a lot of, like you were saying, Mike, there was a lot of disruption at the airport. More than 500 flights that were scheduled to arrive or depart from DCA were canceled. More than 20 flights coming on Friday had also already been canceled preemptively. Most airlines are letting people change their flights without fees, so at least there's that, or letting them reroute to BWI or Dulles, but huge disruptions.
So what do you figure happens next? Like the next couple days, what are the beats we should look for?
I'm going to be watching the FAA site like a hawk because I think the biggest question on my mind is still, how did this happen? And I don't think we're going to get concrete answers from anyone except that I'm sure we'll get a lot of speculation, as President Trump also did during his press conference yesterday. But concrete answers, I think we can only look to the FAA for that.
In addition, the people I'm watching are probably going to be the Maryland and Virginia senators and House reps. Originally, Congress added at the end of 2024 10 new long-haul flights to DCA, coming in and out of DCA, much to the chagrin of those reps. And this is sort of almost an I told you so moment.
Well, no, those reps were complaining about the noise and stuff.
But also, like, that particular airport area has airspace that's at the intersection of the military and civilian zones, and it's super complex to navigate and coordinate. And it's already overbooked, is what they're saying.
I've already started to see the kind of like, well, maybe we got to, maybe DCA's location's not so good and we need to end that. There was conversations like that after 9/11 too. I'm not sure. Like, it is complex, partly because there's a whole lot of areas of DC you're not allowed to fly over. So I just want to be careful, given the cautionary example of our president, before apportioning blame for the crash before it has been properly investigated. So, maybe it's because they added 10 extra long-haul flights, but maybe it's not. I just DCA is like, because it's so close to so many people, it's a pretty controversial subject. I just want to make sure we, the controversies over plenty of other things are different than the controversies over crashes.
Yeah, but to Julia's point, Congress will be something to watch in that respect because not everyone is as careful about not pointing fingers as you might be, Mike.
Well, right, and it's their airport. I mean, in the sense that this is literally these people use it a great deal, so they have an incentive to both care about where you can fly to and whether you're safe, presumably.
Do we know anything about the people who were in the crashes?
Oh, well, we know that there were a lot of figure skaters, both American and Russian. And then as far as locals go, the Northern Virginia figure skating community is apparently reeling. They had several people from their community who were on the flight. And then there were at least 5 other people on the plane who reportedly are from the area, like DC area folk, whose families are, still praying that they get some sort of closure, I guess, at this point is the best people are hoping for.
Hey, are you ready to add a little joie de vivre to your spring? At the Alliance Française of Washington, D.C., early spring classes are just around the corner. The Alliance Française of Washington, D.C. offers language courses tailored to every level. Early spring session starts on February 24th, and if you enroll by January 31st, you will receive a $20 discount. So if you've ever dreamed of ordering your morning cafe in perfect French or discussing art and history with ease, now's your chance. But it's not just about the language courses. A membership with the Alliance Française of Washington, D.C. brings you into a vibrant community that celebrates all things French. You get exclusive access to cultural events, wine tastings, film screenings, and more. Visit www.francedc.org to start your journey. And don't forget, sign up by January 31st and you will get $20 off tuition when you enroll.
When it's cold outside, there is nothing better than a warmly lit restaurant and a cozy 3-course meal. And Winter Restaurant Week makes that actually accessible. It's happening this year from Monday, January 27th through Sunday, February 2nd. There are more than 250 participating restaurants this year, spanning over 70 different cuisines. So I love going to Restaurant Week because it's a chance to try out places that otherwise might be a little out of my budget. And there's something both fancy and relaxing about sitting down to a meal where you just pick from a curated menu at the start and then just let the courses come to you. Participating restaurants are offering brunch and lunch for either $25 or $35 per person. Dinners range from $40 to $65. Some spots even have drink pairings, which is very much right up my alley. Visit rwdmv.com to see restaurant menus and make reservations. Metropolitan Washington Restaurant Week is presented by the Restaurant Association, Metropolitan Washington, and Events DC.
All right, so before we go into our next topic, I want to pause for a second to do a quick membership ask. It's been like quite a week for Team CityCast. I've watched Priyanka and Julia, particularly because they run the show, run around and work insane hours. And it's pretty cool, and people should support them.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah.
Thank you.
It really has been a week. If you want to be a member, it's $8 a month. Just go to membership.citycast.fm and you get ad-free listening. You get a weekly exclusive members-only events email that comes out on Monday afternoons. But the big thing that I want to talk about is that we are working tirelessly every day to try and get you the latest information on what the Trump administration's doing, how things like this massive accident in the Potomac affect your commute, affect your community, affect the economy. Over the course of this week, there have been several times that we have had to start episodes completely from scratch in the middle of the day, 2 p.m., 3 p.m., because of things moving so fast at this moment. The new normal is very, very new. And so yeah, we are a small team and we require funding to keep going, and we want to keep going so we can keep telling these important stories and supporting you. So help us help you. Become a member of CityCast DC, and we can keep doing this work for you, your neighbors, and our city as a whole. Membership.citycast.fm.
Yeah, it's $8 a month. Think of it as like paying for cups of coffee for us while we bring you everything that you need to know at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., things like that.
And you get a tote bag.
And you get a tote bag. That's right. We have 13 tote bags left to give. So the next 13 people who become members get totes. So sign up fast.
All right, so you guys, I have a hunch that in like 100 years, when people look back at this week, this airplane crash will sadly not be the biggest story. You know, there's been these two massive things we've talked about a bit already that happened this week with the Trump administration and, in one case, the federal budget, in one case, the federal workforce. They announced what's being politely called a funding freeze for federal benefits going to a whole bunch of different kinds of nonprofits and local governments and so on. That seems to be quite illegal, and it's more like a theft of money that's already been appropriated by Congress. And then that was frozen by a judge and then disavowed by the administration. Well, sort of disavowed. They said, well, we disavow the memo, but maybe not the policy. It's not clear. And then the other thing, obviously, that we did an episode on yesterday was this apparent buyout offer sent to the entire federal workforce, which, you know, is 2 million in some people spread across the country, but it includes 200,000 jobs in D.C. That's one of 4 jobs in D.C. that they believe is going to cause 10% of the workforce to resign and get paid out. A lot of people don't believe that and don't believe that this payout will ever show up. But both of them together is like a traumatic thing for the city economy. This is, you know, like it's a company town and the company is pulling out.
Yeah, we're talking about mass layoffs. I mean, both of you probably know people who have been laid off or whose companies have had massive layoffs.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I have friends who are in the nonprofit space who are just like, what do we do? Because we don't know what the deal is with our money. And my friends who are in the government are like, do I like get this deferred resignation? Is it a good deal? I would not mind being on my couch eating potato chips while money flows in. That doesn't seem like the worst.
Assuming it flows in, which many people think is a bad assumption.
Thing.
But look at, you know, we've also got, I mean, this is part of a context where even the language of the email sent to the federal workforce, which, you know, includes all of our neighbors, was like basically threatening them that, like, after this, we can't guarantee that your job will be safe and we might do this or that. And it's sort of with variously menacing language. So it wasn't just like, hey, here's a great opportunity to help us reduce our headcount. It's sort of you take this deal now or maybe you'll get a much worse deal later.
Yeah, it's biting. I mean, and it's bizarre language to see in official documents. Like the fact that the word woke is making it into official federal documents is just bizarre to me. Or even Marxist equity was in there. Like, and I do think that since the election on November 5th up until inauguration, I felt among my community like everyone was dejected, resigned, tired. Not everyone, a lot of people, most people. It felt like the city was largely dejected, resigned, tired. In the last week, people are sad and angry, yes. But I feel like there's also like a stewing energy behind it that wasn't there.
I've seen on these Reddit threads that people are like, actually, this makes me want to stay in government more and dig my heels in. Because realistically, what are they going to do? Like, they can't just outright write this memo. They originally would have to like go through Congress to like appropriate the funds to do all of this. And Trump's circumvented that. And so I'm curious to see how the lawsuits play out.
So I think that's the other notable thing of this week. Like, people have all commented on how in 2017 there was all this resistance energy, and the Women's March brought 1 million people out or whatever, and nothing like that's happened this time. But the backlash against both of these things, which in particularly in the District of Columbia, the budget maneuver where they were going to stop all payments to all these Head Start and nonprofits. That in a city like Washington, that money went to a lot of places. And, a lot of people worked at NGOs, which were thinking like, well, on Friday, we won't be able to make payroll. It was also handled terribly, clumsily and, legally, stupidly, so that the judge was quite easily able to thwart it, and cruelly. And the buyout, too, it's not like in the way the federal budget works, apparently, the agencies pay the salaries. So you can't have like the personnel management office say, we will buy you guys out. So the kind of Keystone Cops aspect and the backlash are both sort of, I think, interesting points because they have sort of triggered a degree of organized opposition to things that is, it's different than the 17 model, which was often identity based and you're a horrible person, you can't say these horrible things. This is much more like, you have done something illegal, and first and foremost, we will hire attorneys to go to court and try to prove that. And that's the kind of vibe right now. But this week, who knows? I suspect the stop payment I expect that'll make a comeback, and who knows what happens with the buyouts. But it has, that I just sort of get the sense of a little bit of a vibe shift in Washington, to use a disfavored phrase.
No, I agree. It does feel like something's changing. I don't know what that means on a practical level, like people feeling indignant about the freeze or the buyouts. I mean, if the freeze does come back with a vengeance, like, does that indignation actually help fight it in some way? I'm not sure.
I think we have learned that America doesn't really care about the sight of 1 million, progressives in the streets of Washington, D.C. with witty and angry posters. But the idea that, one, this could also lead to like the organizations getting cut off all over the place, and two, that it, is illegal and incompetent, that seems to me to be a more interesting bite. So we'll see where that goes.
We absolutely will. We will be reporting on it.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The new year brings new health goals and wealth goals. Protecting your identity is an important step. LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, LifeLock's restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Resolve to make identity health and wealth part of your New Year's goals with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
It all sort of dwarfs the thing that, it's a big question in my older child's mind, which is, are they going to stop us from having cell phones at school.
Oh, man.
They don't allow them at her school. There's now a talk at the DC public schools of banning cell phones. This is like part of a national trend that's in blue states and red states, this sort of awareness that cell phones have like a bad effect on young people's mental health, on learning, on all kinds of things. And so in the DC Council, Councilmember Brooke Pinto, who represents sort of downtown and Georgetown, has introduced this bill. And I suspect it'll get through. It is kind of au courant, and they tend to do the au courant thing.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of bill is the type of thing that makes me feel old, because I see this and I'm like, it's not the cool thing to say, but I do think we should take their phones away. Like why do you need your cell phone during class? This is not useful. Your graphing calculator can already do more than it should.
Yeah. I mean, the truth is like, back in my day, I can't believe I have to say that, but like back in my day, like when I went to a private school and cell phones, like the Motorola Razr were like the thing, that was the hot phone, right? We had some teachers who had basically these over-door like shoe cubbies. And they were like, please put your phone in there so you can be prepared and focused for class. You can just grab it after class. Their whole point was like, we want you to be focused and we know that this thing is a distraction. But yeah, like now phones are not the Motorola Razr where you can play like Snake and you text in T9 or whatever. Now it's like having a mini computer in your pocket.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of schools do have like very strict internet and Wi-Fi access rules somehow. I'm not sure exactly how that works on a technical level, but like they can't access certain websites while they're in the school. But still, I'm sure there's lots you can do that's distracting. I guess the one question that I would have is like, depending on how the ban works, like do you put your phone in a box at the entrance of the school and then you get it when you leave, or are you putting it into a box in each individual classroom? Like, I'm curious about the potential safety impact, or being able to communicate with your parents if there's an emergency, or call 911 if there's an emergency.
In my day, we had to go to the payphone on the second floor to do that.
There you go, man. It all comes back to that.
But actually, my thing about it, and I think it's all good, sorry. But like any policy when it involves enforcement, right? Like a little device, which, if you're a smart kid, you can sneak it out of your pocket and no one can see. And then sometimes you get caught and sometimes you don't. Any situation like that, well, someone's going to be doing the enforcing. And they're going to obviously be human about the enforcement. So is it going to be that like the black kids get busted for cell phones, but the white ones don't? Or the teachers buy it when one group says like, oh, I really needed to call my mom about a dentist appointment, but don't buy it when another group says that. This is sort of like any selective enforcement thing. It allows all of the like biases of the outside society to sneak in. And, given the great divides of our outside society, that's sort of the place I see like this could go really, this could lead to bad things.
Oh yeah, for sure. Although I will say, like, one of the things that it says in this is that it doesn't like it still allows like the use of like tablets and laptops in schools. Like, I think phones are part of the issue, but realistically, yeah, like you can put all these things on your computers, and kids are savvy. I feel like kids are going to find a way to get around this,
They always will, but then they'll come up with a new policy. Stay tuned.
Sorry, I couldn't hear what you said. I was looking at my phone. All right, you guys have a good and restful weekend, and I will talk to you on Monday.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
See you, Mike.
All right, that's all for today here on CityCast DC. Our production team this week was Priyanka Tilve, Julia Karen, and Ash Durbin. Newsletter editors Kayla Cote-Stemmerman and Adrian Gonzalez wrote our fabulous newsletter, Hey DC, this week. And our hosts are Bridget Todd and me, Michael Schaefer from Politico. Music is by Alex Roldan. We'll be back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Bye.